Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Dialogue. I'm Taimur. Shamil. Kashmir is a concern for each one of us, not because we are Pakistanis or Kashmiris, but because we are human beings. And Kashmir is a concern for anybody who is concerned about the violation of human rights in Indian occupied Kashmir. Today is a historic day, as Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi was saying. After 50 years, Security Council is discussing Kashmir today. And this is a diplomatic win for Pakistan, for the people of Kashmir, for the people of Pakistan, who stand united to raise up this issue of Indian aggression and violation of human rights in Kashmir. Ambulances have been attacked, women have been attacked, children have been attacked, pellet guns have been used against the innocent Kashmiris, and we are going to raise up this issue at the Security Council. This is a test for Security Council and United Nations as well. They talk about the universal liberal values. Today, we are going to see what the free world, what the world is going to do about the universal liberal values that we talk about, the human rights that we talk about, that are being violated every day in last 72 years in Kashmir. We just heard Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi talking to the media about Kashmir, Pakistan's stance on Kashmir, Pakistan's commitment to peace and stability, but how India has been violating all those human rights in Kashmir, and is also talking about having a kind of a nuclear aggression, which they just hinted at in a tweet of their defense minister. Pakistan is ready to give any befitting response, but we are a responsible nation, and we think that dialogue is the only way forward. We are going to discuss this with our special guest in the studios. Our first guest is Brigadier retired Syed NAzir, now senior defense analyst and an expert on Pakistan's national security. Sir, welcome to the show. Our second guest is Mr. Imran Jan. He is a columnist and also an expert on Pakistan's political affairs and its relation with the outside world. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Our third guest is Ambassador Aslam Rizvi, renowned senior diplomat and expert on Pakistan's foreign policy and its relations with the neighboring countries. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Brigadier NAzir, starting with Foreign Minister's press conference. You just saw his press conference. Our special representative to United Nations, Mariha Lodi, was talking to the media a while ago. She also talked about almost the same things that Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi was talking about. After 50 years, this is the first time that Pakistan, through the letter of Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, we are discussing Kashmir in its Security Council. How do you see this development at the diplomatic level?
Oh, thank you indeed. But actually, India has pushed us to that situation that it may not be by design, but by implication, we have gone to the United Nations Security Council for the reason that they were not talking to Pakistan on the basis of Shamil agreement, which is bilateralism. Second thing was that whosoever wanted to mediate, and recently Mr. Trump wanted to mediate on Kashmir, and that mediation offer was rejected by India. Third was that whether the Kashmiris should live as far as their special status was concerned. But India on 5th of August abrogated their own constitution, Article 370 and Article 35A, which gave a special status to the people of Kashmir living there. Actually, these violations are tantamount that India was not caring for anybody, neither the international community, neither a bilateralism mechanism, and nor the Kashmiris themselves. And they went unilaterally, you can say with a stroke of pen, they amended the constitution and presidential order was issued, and it created an uproar in the Kashmir as well. It created a hue and cry in Pakistan as well, and it almost disturbed the whole equilibrium of the issue. So that's why it was of such magnanimous nature, and it was such a move which almost shook the foundation of the whole issue. So that's why Pakistan went to the United Nations Security Council, and that going to the Security Council was actually to the disappointment of the India, because the way it has been accepted and it is being discussed, it means that the issue has gone internationalized against the wishes of the Indians, against their well-propagated policy of bilateralism, and against that Pakistan wanted to defreeze this issue, but India wanted to have a status quo. But now what they did, they almost finished the Kashmir issue on their own, to which Pakistan was a legal party according to the United Nations regulation,
Right.
and plus the plebiscite which was promised by the international powers.
Right.
And more so, this issue is
right.
still rather the second oldest and longest issue which has not been solved by United Nations Security
So
Council.
this idea, Mr. Imran Jan, of that this issue is an internal issue. By the way, this has become more sort of a joke that to the world, Indians are telling that this is a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan, and to Pakistan they say that this is an internal issue. But this issue is now being discussed in Security Council today. How do you see this development, and do you think that this is a blow to the Indian diplomacy, their stance on Kashmir, Indian occupied Kashmir?
Well, I think it is indeed a diplomatic win for Pakistan. There's no doubt about that. You know, the issue went up to the United Nations, and as we all know that it is for the first time in 50 years that people are at the United Nations are talking about it. However, I must caution everyone in Pakistan, especially the people who are making the policy, that this is not enough. It is just a closed door meeting, which I have serious doubt that anything substantial or significant will come out of that.
But still a closed door meeting
It
for
is
the
a
first time in 50 years.
Absolutely. Like I said, it is a diplomatic win. But the important thing is, and if we don't have to go back deep into the history. If we just try to remember what happened after the Pulwama incident, the Indians started threatening Pakistan. They said, we need to teach Pakistan a lesson. Then they went ahead and attacked in Balakot, where their false claim was that they killed more than 300 people, which was found even by the world media to be false. Now, the reason I'm mentioning that example is because up until that moment, no nation in the world ever came up and said, well, we need to de-escalate, stop going to war and all that stuff. Nobody said a word until Pakistan Air Force shot down the Indian aircraft and Abhinandan Vartaman was captured. That is when everyone came in and all the calls for de-escalation and not going to war came in. If Pakistan wants to get the attention of the world community, especially the United States and the European Union maybe, they have to go beyond that. And it may sound very harsh and very extreme. They have to make preparations for war. That is the only way the world community is going to pay attention and intervene and ask for both countries to back off and maybe even pressure India to reverse the annexation of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir.
Well, certainly Pakistan is prepared for any sort of misadventure from the Indian side, but we don't stand for war, Ambassador Rizvi. Pakistan is very clear about that, we are clear about that, but this diplomatic win, and how can we go beyond this, because this is an interesting development, big development for today. We have to come up with something holistic, a more multi-pronged approach towards the Kashmir issue. How do you see that?
Well, as you know, the Kashmir dispute has been on the United Nations Security Council, and there have been 11 resolutions on the issue. The fact is that nobody talks about the Kashmir dispute as such, but they are talking more about recently of India-Pakistan dispute. And as a matter of fact, the subject of the present meeting that was held was also India-Pakistan.
At the Security Council?
At the Security
But they're also going to discuss about the letter that Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has written to
Agreed,
the
but
President.
the fact is, but the title of the question that was the consultation was on India-Pakistan, not on the Kashmir issue. Now, we have heard over the years from the Secretary General to Russia to America, all the leaders the world over, referring to the dispute and saying that expressing their concern and requesting that both parties should not allow it to aggravate and go out of hand and should be handled bilaterally and so on. But as we mentioned here, the Indians claim this is an internal matter. But the fact of the matter is that it is the responsibility of the Secretary General of the United Nations to implement the resolution on Kashmir, though it is under Article 6. It is his responsibility that any situation between any region of the world, if it is likely to aggravate into a war-like situation, then it is incumbent on them to have the world community and its own force to settle that issue. Regrettably, it has not been done.
Right.
We have seen that there was, even after the 1965 war, when the last time the Security Council met on the Kashmir issue, it was the same talk, that asking for restraint on both sides and so on. And yet we see that, the being an internal matter, we've seen other countries where talked about it being an internal matter. We have seen Sudan, we have seen Kosovo, we have seen East Timor, we have seen many other actions where the Secretary General has come into play and to resolve those matters. So I think it's a failure of the Security Council and the Secretary General not to bring this to the logical conclusion. Right. Now, as the Foreign Minister has just mentioned, India is talking about a nuclear war. And we saw what happened back even in post the nuclear tests that we did. There was a resolution 1172 of the United Nations Security Council. Again, when in the context of the nuclear ability that we had acquired at that time, there was a caution from them to say that we should settle our differences peacefully and not allow it to go out of hand. So I think, but the important thing is, the fact is, as mentioned earlier, repeatedly, this is the first time in 50 years that this matter has gone to Security Council. And most importantly, the impact of this is India's claim that this is an internal matter is self-evident. It is in the world body, the highest diplomatic forum where this has been totally, rubbished.
Interestingly, the Indian representative to UN, he was repeating the same mantra that this is a bilateral issue and should not be discussed at the Security Council. But this is, as you said,
they're just trying to,
divert the attention.
Try to sidetrack the issue and so on. So much also about the Indian Defense Minister talking about nuclear weapons and so on. The whole purpose being there is to try and divert the attention from the main issue. So this is the important thing.
Right. Brigadier Nazir, this can be a flashpoint, as Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said, this issue of Kashmir. And this is very important. Strategically, the way Pakistan wrote this letter to Security Council, China backed this letter, and through China's initiative as well, through their support. Now we are discussing this at the Security Council. How do you see this Kashmir issue becoming a big issue in the region, issue for peace and stability, keeping China and Pakistan both in mind?
Yes, of course, the first fundamental principle or duty of the UN Security Council is that the world peace be maintained. And anywhere where there are chances or threats of war, that should be averted. Keeping that fundamental principle in view, I suppose Kashmir is the flashpoint and a nuclear flashpoint between the two nuclear belligerents. Now, talking about the Kashmir, the way in Kashmir, the Kashmir has been converted into a big jail, where the children, the women, and the youth, and the elders, and the sick, and everybody has been confined to their houses, and there are more than about 700,000 troops deployed. Curfew is imposed from the last about 12, 13 days, and there is no outside media which is allowed, no internet facility is there. It has been completely, they are completely into a black hole. They have been put together.
Right.
So they know it, that if we relax these conditions, the Kashmiris are going to come on the streets, because they were coming on the street and they were on the street. Peacefully they were demonstrating. They were the stone pelting kids. But why they were doing it? Because the Indian forces were committing atrocities. So they were using all sort of weapons.
This is something happening inside Kashmir. Strategically, in the region, the larger politics, how do you see China's interest in this issue of Kashmir? And China is very concerned about it, and they have said that in their statements as well. How do you see that?
Why they should not be concerned? Because once Mr. Shah was presenting in the Lok Sabha this particular resolution, so the opposition member, probably from Congress, he got up and he says, what do you mean by Kashmir? And he said, I mean Azad Kashmir, I mean Gilgit-Baltistan, and I mean Aksai Chin.
Amit Shah, right.
Yeah, Amit Shah. He said this thing. It means that they are for the complete buffering of the Pakistan and China. So naturally, China should be concerned about. Moreover, India is a neighbor of China. Pakistan is also a neighbor of China. And this region is rightly located there on the confluence of the three states. So naturally, China is strategically concerned. But let me make this point that once these things will be relieved, these restrictions, the Kashmiris will definitely come on the streets. And India will be again using the brutal force. Once they will be using that force and they are trigger happy, so there will be casualties. So it will inflagrate. There will be implosion. And that implosion will be responded by definitely the Kashmiri brethren on this side of the AK, and plus Pakistan should also be rather giving some moral support and other supports to them. Once it will come to that point, naturally the troops on both sides are also there on the line of control. So they will bring high line of control into boil. So once they will bring it, so naturally surgical strike and limited war is within their doctrine. Once they will go for that, so naturally then it is in nobody's, you can say, control, that it can go out of control, and any miscalculation could lead to a nuclear flashpoint where the world peace will be at stake.
At stake. Mr. Imran Jan, you just mentioned about going beyond today's developments, let's say. What do you have in mind? What do you think what are the policy options for Pakistan, foreign policy options for Pakistan going beyond this development of today? Though Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi also said that they would be having meetings tomorrow and they would keep a follow-up on that.
Okay, so I'm going to come to that, but in order to explain my argument, I just want to mention that the Indian Defense Minister, who just recently said that the no force use doctrine that was there since the days of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, they're going to reconsider that, meaning in a way, in a veiled threat to Pakistan. Basically, they said that we may not be the nation to always go for no force use. We can just be the first ones to strike you. That's exactly the meaning of that statement. I want to mention here that we should not take that statement seriously at all. Pakistan should not be concerned with that statement, and here's the reason. No force used is merely a myth, because nuclear-powered countries know whoever strikes, let's say if one country which is a nuclear power goes to war with another country which also has nuclear powers, they're both going to be destroyed. Mutually assured destruction, MAD, which is exactly what prevented the Soviet Union and the United States from going to active real war with each other, hence the Cold War. So now that I've explained that point, what I have in mind is one option that Pakistan definitely has, and again, it sounds mean, but this is global politics. It's about interest, and you have to be ruthless and selfish. One option that Pakistan absolutely has is that in order to influence New Delhi, it has to influence Washington. And in order to do that, there is the option of Afghan peace talks that are happening in there. And what Pakistan can do is basically ask the United States, we need to mobilize and send our troops to the eastern border because we are being threatened by the Indians. If you really want our cooperation on our western border in Afghanistan, you know what, ask the Indians to back off. Solve this issue, tell them to stop being belligerent, tell them to stop threatening us all the time, and then we can focus on achieving peace in Afghanistan and in the greater region. That is one option, absolutely. But again, Pakistani leadership will have to stop with the peace gestures. They have to stop with that. This is one of the reasons why Indians got so bold, because of Imran Khan. I support him, I like him, but he kept announcing that we want to avoid war, we want to just go for a peaceful option. That emboldened them. You have to scare these people, you have to scare the Indians, and that's not the way, by the way, to do that.
But they also saw the response from the Pakistani side when they sent their aircrafts. Ambassador Rizvi, foreign policy options for Pakistan, what are the foreign policy options for Pakistan? We recently saw the diaspora, Pakistani diaspora, Kashmiri diaspora, a lot of Sikhs, by the way, protesting against the Indian atrocities in Kashmir outside the Indian High Commission in London. It was a massive gathering. How can we tap this potential of the diaspora and keep a follow-up of this development of today?
Before I come to that, a quick mention. What the present discussion in the United Nations Security Council has done three important things as far as Kashmir is concerned. One, as I mentioned, it is rejected the Indian claim that it's an internal matter. Secondly, it has highlighted once again the human rights violation based also of its own reports, two reports. And thirdly, the humanitarian crisis that has occurred there. So this fact is there. Now, another important thing that happened in this particular consultation was that the United Nations Military Observer Group's reports, they were also discussed in the consultation. Now, what has been happening in the past, as you know, the observer group is in Pakistan's side, but India keeps them in Delhi or some else, and these reports, whenever they were sent, they were just put away in papers and so on. Nobody paid any attention. Now a focus is going to be done there, say exactly what is going on and what are their reports that have gone through here. So that's been a very important development. Now, I would agree that we should not say that we want a peaceful option and there is the mad theory that is available. But let's not forget, United States of America did drop 2 atomic bombs. And only recently, their president said that we have the mother of all bombs. We could have finished Afghanistan crisis problem within a week. So when you have righteous people, when you have people with this kind of thinking, that they can solve any problem, you can't put it beyond them to go nuclear. Especially as far as the Hindutva policy is concerned. Now the West in particular and Americans also have always been worried about the Pakistan's so-called Islamic bomb, saying that we are worried that the finger may go on a fundo who may press the rightest guy on the thing. But look what is happening right now in India. Don't we have a really a fascist government who could go to any extreme? So, I mean, the statement made by that, I will not reject it outright because they are really, there is a big danger on that. And the world should take notice of that. Now, as far as our options are concerned for political and diplomatic, I think this is only one step that we have done. It's not going to be end. In case the situation gets aggravated on the line of control, we will go back again to the Security Council. We should use all means that we've been doing. The Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister have been in touch with their counterparts the world over. We have the Kashmiri diaspora all over. We have seen people going out all the way to keep this highlighting, and we have sent a very clear message for the Kashmiris that they're not alone. Their voice may be muffled or closed within Kashmir, but it is going to all corners of the world. And this Pakistan will continue to do till we have a settlement of Kashmir.
And that's what Foreign Minister Qureshi said, that this is the first and not the last step that Pakistan has taken. Mr.
I just want to clarify. I understand, I agree that Narendra Modi he adheres to that RSS extremist ideology, and he is someone who says and does crazy and extreme things. But I just want to mention, Japan was not a nation that had the kind of weapons that the United States had. It wasn't a match between the two countries. At the same time, the statement by Rajnath Singh, Indian Defense Minister, is actually not a distraction, as many people might believe that it's a distraction from what's happening in Kashmir. It is actually exactly targeted at what is happening in the United Nations right now, what just happened. They were basically conveying the message, listen, do not decide against us, otherwise we are these crazy people who might just go for that nuclear weapon. It wasn't a distraction, it was just, they were targeting the United Nations Security Council. And so that is exactly, by the way, that is exactly what I'm asking the Pakistani leadership to do, to convey that message that we will just do it if someone decides against us, because they're doing it. They're conveying this message that, we're not scared, we're crazy, we'll do it.
And that's why we are discussing this thing today in the Security Council, because this is, Brigadier Nazir, a serious issue that the world realizes the gravity of the situation. How do you see it?
Yes, of course, the gravity is there, the problem is there, the problem is well recognized, it is on the table of the United Nations for more than about 70 years. And now after 50 years, it has rekindled and being discussed. So it is an issue. To say it is not an issue or it is an internal affair, I suppose that is just a self-reconciling statement for their own ground. It is not for the international community. And no international community with a sane mind will accept it. One. Second thing is that this is the time for Pakistan, because India has gone completely unilaterally and on a way of they have not only abrogated all the international covenants or the international regimes or the international agreement on this, but they have also scrapped similar agreement as well. And I suppose once we have got to the international forum, now we should not talk of bilateralism, because India has been dragging feet on comprehensive dialogue as well as on composite dialogue.
And this
that,
point
that we should not walk away from the Simla agreement, because it is no more bilateral. Bilateralism should be closed and should be buried for all the time. One. Second thing is, if you don't do or don't act today, we will be acting after 5 years or 10 years. Because if India grab this and go away scot-free with this, they will go for the water terrorism.
Right.
And water terrorism will be a sort of suicide for Pakistan, because the whole Punjab and the whole our food basket will be barren. So that will be the time that Pakistan will be considering a war with India. So why not today we should settle the score on this issue with India, so that tomorrow this issue doesn't arise of the water crisis. Because if they grab it and if they go away with it scot-free, that will be a very dangerous dimension for the future of Pakistan. It is
Right.
now for the Kashmiris, but it will be for the entire Pakistan in a later state.
Right.
And third, let me say that their army chief used to say that Pakistani nuclear brandishing is a bluff. It is a nuclear bluff. Well, I suppose in today's world, things are very clear, and we have demonstrated it. And still, if they call it a nuclear bluff, and we have got our nuclear threshold, we don't want to brandish it. We don't to rattle it. But at the same time, we are prepared that if our nuclear thresholds are crossed, then they should be prepared for the mad. And if there are mad people sitting there, they must be talking of the madness. But madness has also got a method to it.
Right. And Mr. Rizvi, this whole situation that is going on, the timing is very interesting. Prime Minister Imran Khan goes to United States, meets President Trump in the Oval Office, and they talk about Kashmir. President Trump says that he was approached by Modi to mediate in Kashmir. But then when Prime Minister Imran Khan comes back, we see what is happening now, the whole thing that has escalated. How do you see these things that are happening, these developments and the aggression that is coming from the Indian side? Do you think that they have rebuffed the offer by the US President? How do you see this international politics?
I think it is possible that, when President Trump has said it once and reiterated it the second time, and though there have been denials from the officials in the press in India, but Prime Minister Modi hasn't said a word. So it's likely that he had already decided to go ahead and take action in Kashmir. And he was hoping, in case the situation then escalates, that President Trump can jump in and try and mediate. Now, for that matter, Russia too has offered to mediate on this issue. Russia, of course, and Tashkent had done that at one, offered from there. But when the mediation takes place, in what terms? Because their bias with India for both countries are well known. So, and if there were to be a mediation, they would try for a solution which would, what the Indians would want. So I think that may have done that from their mediation. Let me just quickly also mention the fact that, India is not only, also thinking that apart from the nuclear bluff, as they were thinking, and the second was that they have the conventional power. Although we have seen a small skirmish which has taken place in February, but that doesn't really, convince them that they do not have the superiority. It is fortunate the way it turned out for Pakistan, but they feel that they have the overwhelming superiority in the conventional field. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, the Indian army and the military as a whole, they have budget cutbacks. They are, corruption extreme corruption taking place there. The morale is way down.
Yes.
You know, they are highest suicide rate that you can imagine from there.
Outdated
And
military supplies.
you know, their military platforms, I mean, they look, I mean, they had a wing commander flying a MiG-21 on a skirmish with Pakistan and from here. The naval ships, you know, they have the aircraft carrier is more of a liability or otherwise from there. And which country in the world you have the army chiefs and so on going to the Supreme Court for their seniority, you know, and for their pays and so on.
Right.
I mean, the country, I mean, and they are facing a Pakistan army which is acknowledged, and our Air Force is acknowledged worldwide for its competence and its, you know, its capabilities. So they would be mistaken if they think that they can go ahead with the cold start and this and that and they will be able to get away. No. And that is what the Prime Minister meant. That is what General Bajwa said. We're not looking for war, but if you come, we know how to take care of you.
And that is Pakistan's stance. National morale plays a key role in national power, Brigadier Nazir. And the world knows about Pakistan's national morale and our national power. India absolutely lacks that national morale, as Ambassador Rizvi was saying. High suicide rate within the armed forces of India. How do you see this whole situation that is coming up?
Well,
With
actually,
these threats and all that.
it has been mentioned by their vice chief as well, and he visited various defense installations, and he said three things. Number one, that our technical know-how, our industry is not capable of absorbing the modern generation technology. Second thing, what we have got in our kitty is 70% obsolete. And third, that we have failed in training our people or meshing the technology with our technical know-how. So these are the very serious statements which he gave. And after that, India from the last almost a year has got on a shopping spree to take whatsoever from the world and put it into their inventory. And that's why Mr. Modi was saying, alas, Rafael was not there. Otherwise, the things would have been different. So if they are relying on those equipment or ties, not on the morale, not on the booster, which is the morale booster, so I suppose there is something wrong with that. But at the same time, let me tell you, as far as the timings are concerned, number one, Pakistan was getting, you can say, a world kudu or world response and pat on the back as far as the Afghanistan peace is concerned. And as far as Pakistan was getting stature there and its perceptions were getting better in Afghanistan, India wanted to have a spoil role on that side. Third thing, India never wanted that we should be relieved of the Western Front. So that's why they created the Eastern Front at the same time. Third thing is Pakistan was a bit politically, internally, you can say a bit divided, or there was polarization. So they also wanted to take advantage of that. And third is our economic situation, where India is spending more than about 60 billion on the new purchases just in 1 year.
Right.
And they aim to get about 500 billion.
Right.
So naturally, such sort of thing they wanted to, this is the time that they could go for this sort of venture against the Kashmir.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Though we can discuss a lot certainly on this, but thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. Brigadier NAzir, pleasure having you on the show. Mr. Imran Jan, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. Ambassador Rizvi, thank you for joining us. Pleasure having you on the show. Kashmir is being discussed today in the Security Council. And as I said in my introduction, this is a concern not just for the Pakistanis or the Kashmiris. This is a concern for each one of us who is concerned about the violation of human rights anywhere in the world, especially in Kashmir. The world has realized that. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi wrote a letter to the President of the Security Council, and today we are discussing it. After 50 years, Kashmir is being discussed at the Security Council. We hope that the world community realizes the gravity of the situation and the violation of human rights in Kashmir. And we hope that the people of Kashmir get what they want, something very basic that all of us want: freedom to live our lives the way we want to live it. Thank you for watching today's show. See you next time.